Yo, 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 it's the Grapple FK boys back with another fight pick. We're doing the main fight on the Ortega and Korean Zombie headliner, which is on the 17th of October, this coming Saturday slash Sunday morning. So yeah, it's the big one. It's T-City versus Korean Zombie. Let's just start off with some of the stats. 5'8", 5'7". I've seen some websites where the Korean Zombie is listed as 5'9", Andrew. I'm not sure if you've come across any websites like that.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I was slightly surprised when I saw the figure of 5'7". I assumed
Yeah, I've
he's
seen
a
some
bit big.
websites where he's 5'9". And obviously we've touched on this before that a lot of the stats on the UFC site, particularly heights, are not correct.
So, what's the UFC saying? He's 5'7". Okay.
Yeah,
The UFC
UFC.
does tend to inflate heights, though. So I wonder if this is actually his real height.
Yeah, I don't know. He looks. I mean, him standing against other opponents who are around this height, he looks taller.
Mm.
I wouldn't be surprised if he's taller than Brian or his height.
In my mind, I tend to think of him as a pretty large featherweight.
Yeah, he's pretty big. Yeah,
A 5'7" isn't that big, so
yeah,
I would have
five
estimated
seven.
he's about 5'9".
Yeah, that's what he's listed at on some sites. But I mean, more or less around the same height, I guess.
Mm.
Reach, he's got a 3-inch reach advantage. Leg reach is pretty much the same. Wins, he's got more TKOs, KOs. He does have more. He does have a harder punch. Subs they're equal, but I would argue that Brian Ortega's BJJ is more advanced than his. Um, Decisions. Yeah, Brian Ortega's had a few more. Average fight time almost the same. Knockdown average. Korean Zombie slightly higher. Significant strikes. Korean Zombie lands more than he absorbs. Looks like Brian absorbs a lot more than he lands. This may have been skewed by the Holloway fight, um, where he got absolutely destroyed.
That's definitely skewed by the Holloway fight for sure.
Yeah. Defense, again, may have been skewed by the Holloway fight. Korean Zombie's better grappling takedown average. Yeah, he does get more takedowns. Korean Zombie. Takedown accuracy, yeah, that's reflected by the takedown accuracy and takedown defense. His takedown defense is also higher. Submission average, Brian Ortega has more submissions. He is predominantly a submission fighter. So what are your initial thoughts?
I think the first thing we have to address is, has Brian Ortega recovered psychologically from the horrific beatdown that Max Holloway laid on him? We're going back 2 years now. Um,
Yeah,
so I mean that's 2 years that he's been out of action.
yeah,
Uh, so there are a couple of questions there. Has he psychologically recovered? Um, and secondly, from the physical damage that he took, remember he broke his hand, and I saw an interview recently where he said he had 8 months of surgery on the hand. That's, of course, that's 8 months that he wasn't training, and then that coronavirus hits. He's not in his normal training routine. Um, so I just wonder if he sort of missed a step in terms of his training.
yeah. He's been out almost 2 years, um, which is a very long time, and he got absolutely destroyed in that fight. And that's a very, very good point. And that's something that I wanted to touch on as well. Where is he at mentally? Because he's done some odd things too. He attacked one of you probably know this. He attacked one of the Korean Zombies' friends when they were at a UFC event together. They were sitting next to each other, and when the Korean Zombie went to the toilet, Brian Ortega slapped his friend last year,
Okay.
and then the Korean Zombie basically tweeted saying that you're a coward and I was sitting next to you for 2 hours, but you didn't even look at me, but you slapped my friend when I was in the toilet, blah, 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 blah.
Was the friend a fighter?
No, he's a singer who hangs around with the Korean Zombie and sometimes translates for him.
Is he Korean? The guy, the singer.
Yeah, he's Korean. Yeah,
I can't
his
imagine
name
a
is.
Korean would start trouble. They tend to be very polite people.
Yeah, I think Brian Ortega was probably just being a dick. Um, And then obviously Brian Ortega earlier on in his fight career has got tested positive for PEDs during
Oh,
one
did
fight.
he?
Yeah, so he's had a history of PED usage as well.
But when was that? Which fight was that?
I think this was one of his first fights in the UFC that got overturned. He choked the guy out and it got overturned because he tested positive for an illegal substance. Something else just to touch on, you mentioned coronavirus. Renner Gracie, who his head coach just tested positive for COVID-19, so he's not going to be in his corner, which is quite significant.
Which one is Hannah Gracie?
Renner, Rener. It's one of the Gracies. He got his black belt off Renner Gracie.
Yeah, it is Henna because Portuguese.
Oh, is it Henna? Sorry. Yeah,
yeah.
there goes me fucking names up again.
Yeah.
But yeah, he tested positive, so he won't be in his corner during the fight. But yeah, I mean that's a very fair point. Where is he at mentally? He's done some very strange things. He's been out for a while. He got absolutely destroyed in his last fight. 8 months of surgery and then going into COVID, slapping people in arenas. And I think he was really riding high on that. Oh, I mean, it wasn't really a hype train. He is the real deal. He's a very, very good fighter. But he just came up against probably the best 145 pounder in history.
Yeah,
and he got butchered.
He really did get butchered.
Yeah.
As you said, he was having an excellent run.
He was.
There was a lot of hype behind him, and I think he was dispatching guys pretty easily. And when you have that kind of devastating loss, it does impact you. When you go from being king of the world almost to being brutalized, that's got to have an impact. And I think part of the problem is that maybe his ride to the Max Holloway fight was a little too easy. He didn't have the most difficult fights, which is, to his credit, he beat people, in dominant fashion. But the reason I say that is because I don't think Brian Ortega does very well when faced with adversity. This is kind of a recurring theme in this podcast. I remember we said this about Marlon Moraes. Some people, when they take some big shots, they kind of crumble. They start moving backwards, and you can see it on their face. They look morally defeated.
He took a hell of a beating though for 4 rounds.
He did, but to me he looked morally defeated after the first round. He took a couple of big shots, but it was a competitive first round. But towards the second half of that round, he just looked like he was losing that fight mentally. So I do question his. I mean, toughness is not the right word because to survive, 4 round.
Yeah, he's definitely tough.
Yeah. But there's a different way of seeing this. Because there's toughness and heart that can keep you sort of surviving and not quitting when you're broken. But there's also not being broken in the first place. And I just don't know how tough Brian Ortega is.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, he didn't have to go through that adversity in any of his other fights, I guess. I mean, he was finishing people very quickly, choking them out, mainly KOing a few people. I think he KO'd Edgar in round 1. Choked a lot of people out in round 1 or 2. But I mean, it should be mentioned that that's adversity against the best 145 pounder in history.
Who probably should be champion right now.
Yeah, but that is a good point. The mentality thing is a huge point because he's been out for what approx just under 2 years, so 680, 690-ish days. It's a hell of a long time.
Ring rust.
Yeah, ring rust
isn't a thing for everybody, but it is a thing for some people. And I suspect it could be a thing for Brian Ortega.
Well, yeah, I mean, particularly if you're saying he couldn't train for 8 months because of his broken hand, and then obviously COVID's impacted things. And then on the other side, we've got the Korean Zombie. All right, he hasn't fought since last year, but he's looked great in his last 2 fights. I think the fight he had against Yair Rodriguez, he was, I mean, credit to Yair with a knockout, but he was quite unlucky with that. That was a very odd knockout, and he was up on the scorecards.
Was he actually up on the? I know people seem to think he was winning that fight. I watched that fight.
He was up on the scorecards. Yeah.
Yeah, because I watched that fight. I didn't know. I had no idea who was winning.
Yeah, it was very close. It was very close. Yeah, he was up on the scorecards when he got KO'd.
Yeah, but what I liked about that fight, Korean Zombie, was, he kind of shut down Yair's game, because Yair, he throws a lot of fancy stuff at range,
Yeah.
and he did, for the most part, shut that down, which I think is reassuring. But to be fair to Yair Rodriguez, he broke Korean Zombie's nose, I think, pretty early on, which maybe kind of reveals some limitations of his style.
Yeah, I mean, his style is reflected in his nickname, right? He just goes forward, takes a shot, gives a shot.
Yeah.
Hits very hard. I think particularly in his last two fights, his boxing's looked incredibly crisp. I mean, they finished quite quickly, but his boxing's looked very precise. His BJJ is good. He's a black belt. I don't think it's as good as Brian's, but we've seen that he's got better takedown defense, and we've seen that he's got better wrestling offense.
Do you think this will go to the ground at any point?
I think Brian will be more likely to take it to the ground than the Korean Zombie.
Do you think he can, though, looking at those takedown stats and takedown defense stats? Do you think that's possible?
Well, given that Brian doesn't really get takedowns, I think he relies more on people's mistakes when he's in the clinch or when they're trying to take him down. I mean, it's hard to say. I think Brian can probably get him down if he goes for a few takedowns, but I think Brian would be more likely to try and get a submission in out of a Korean Zombie mistake. So maybe if Korean Zombie shoots, which doesn't normally anyway, but if he shoots or something, then maybe get him in a guillotine or something else. Or if they're up against the cage, if he makes a mistake, try and get him in a submission. But I think the Korean Zombie can keep this standing. I think he's got the takedown defense to keep it standing.
Yeah, I mean, my issue with Brian Ortega is he's a defensive jiu-jitsu guy. He gets submissions off his back. He's not the kind of guy who's going to take you down and get position. As you said, he relies on mistakes, on people's mistakes when he's on the bottom. I don't see Korean Zombie doing that. But black belts, I mean, decent black belts like Korean Zombie don't do that.
Yeah.
And we've seen, I think it's been quite a while since we've seen Korean Zombie's jiu-jitsu. But I just watched the fight against Dustin Poirier.
Oh, he submitted him. Yeah.
Yeah, also a black belt. I think the submission actually came after strikes. So I think Korean Zombie, wobbled Dustin Poirier, and then he got the submission. But leading up to that, there was some very competitive, jiu-jitsu, grappling battles. And for the most part, Korean Zombie was dominating. So he's a very high-level BJJ guy.
Yeah, he is. He's also got a twister in the UFC. I can't remember who it was against. He has a twister. I'm pretty sure it was a twister.
Let me have a look. Leonard Garcia.
Brian Ortega should be mentioned as a first-degree Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. So he's at a higher level than the Korean Zombie. But can he take him down? I think it'll be very difficult for him to take the Korean Zombie down. He's a big dude and he's got a good takedown defense. And let's see some more stats. We've got the Korean Zombie here. Takedown defense 77%. That's very good. Lands more than he absorbs. He's got KOs on his record. He's been KO'd as well. And he's got
that takedown
on the record too.
That takedown defense, if that's 78% and Ortega's takedown accuracy is 16%.
Yeah, it's 16. Yeah,
It,
well remembered.
he's not taking him down.
No, he's not. No, this. Yeah, he doesn't, and this is why I said he doesn't normally take people down. He as you said, he's defensive. You know more about jiu-jitsu than I do, but from what I can see, he relies on people to make mistakes or to make the first move, and then he counters in terms of jiu-jitsu.
So yeah, I think Korean Zombie will elect to keep this standing.
Oh, 100%. He's got more power than him, and
Yeah.
arguably better boxing now. I think his boxing's got a lot better now.
That's a tricky question. There are moments when Brian Ortega looks really good on the feet. For example, in the fight against Max Holloway in the first round, he had a couple of beautiful counters.
Yeah, no, he's good. He is good, but yeah, I mean, it's hard to. Oh, okay, in terms of actual technique, it's probably hard to say the Zombie's got better technique than him, but he definitely hits harder. Definitely
For
hits
sure,
harder.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say that the thing with Brian Ortega, there are moments where he looks really good. Like he's trained some really cool stuff. But again, when faced with pressure, it doesn't really work.
He's a very good fighter. If we look at his previous fights, yeah, I mean, KO'd Edgar in round 1. Korean Zombies KO'd Edgar in round 1 too as well. Subbed Cobb Swanson in round 2. Subbed Moicano in round 3. TKO'd with a knee Clay Guida. I mean, he's been good people. But the question is, can he keep the Korean Zombie off him? Coming on to predictions now, I don't think he can. I think this fight will be close, and I wouldn't put this in the coms. Not for me anyway. I think it's pretty close. They're both very good fighters, but I suspect that the Korean Zombie will defend his takedowns. He doesn't really get takedowns anyway, and I think he's got high enough BJJ knowledge to counter anything that Brian does, or to figure out what traps he's laying, and then I think the Korean Zombie can hurt him at some point in that 5 rounds.
Yeah, I think, as you say, this stays on the feet. So it comes down to the striking. So Brian Ortega typically likes to fight at range.
Yeah.
If you're going to fight at range, you really need to pop the jab, and you need to throw leg kicks, and you need to throw volume. I haven't seen a whole load of that from Brian Ortega in his previous fights. So you need to do that, or you need to be excellent at counterpunching. I've seen Brian Ortega throw some excellent counterpunches against elite fighters like Max Holloway. I just haven't seen enough of it. And my main problem with Brian Ortega is that he doesn't do well with pressure. I think in the Max Holloway fight, he was broken about 3 minutes in. I think he was morally defeated 3 minutes in. So if Max Holloway can do that, and Max Holloway does not have power, Korean Zombie, I think, can pressure him, land, and hit him hard. And I think Korean Zombie can break him.
Yeah, and he's been a lot more active. All right, he hasn't fought this year, but he's fought 2 or 3 times since Brian Ortega's last fight. And going back to the volume point, I think you hit the nail on the head there. If you look at, as we said, Ortega's a very good counter puncher. He is. His boxing is pretty good in terms of counter punching. But if you look at volume, okay, Max Holloway 290 to 110. Edgar outlanded him before Brian Ortega KO'd him. Cub Swanson outlanded him by over double before he got choked out. Moicano outlanded him by 40/50 punches before he got choked out. So he gets outlanded by his opponents. And the thing is, if he gets outlanded by Korean Zombie, which he probably will, I think he was going to find it very hard to choke the Korean Zombie out or KO him.
Mhm.
Okay, the Korean Zombie has been KO'd before, but that Yair Rodriguez KO, not taking anything away from Yair, but that was quite lucky the way
Yeah.
that happened. That was a kind of a freak knockout. So I don't know. I just think I'm leaning more towards the Korean Zombie in this. I think he can outland him, as you said. I think he can pressure him, and I don't see Brian getting a submission. I don't see Brian KOing him. I can see the Korean Zombie really hurting him in this fight.
So do I. I can see the Korean Zombie hurting Ortega pretty quickly. It's a kind of fight. I think Brian Ortega can look good for the first round, but it just comes back to the point. I don't think Brian Ortega likes the fight that much. I don't think he's got the grit to fight somebody like Korean Zombie. Because Korean Zombie, as well, he's going to come forward like a zombie. You'll hit him, and he'll keep coming forward, and they'll hit you
He
back
won't quit.
harder.
Yeah.
And that's a serious problem. There's one thing we haven't mentioned. Given this is a 5-round fight, who do you think has the better cardio?
Well, they've both gone 5 rounds before, haven't they? I'm not sure. That's a very good question.
Because Korean Zombie's had 2, I think.
No, actually, Ortega hasn't gone 5 rounds.
He's gone 4.
He's gone 4.
And that didn't go too well for him. But didn't really get to see how his cardio was because it was ended.
Korean Zombie's gone 5. He lost to Yair, but we mentioned that was he went 4 and he lost to Aldo. He went 4 against Dustin Poirier and he subbed him.
Yeah, so in that Dustin Poirier fight, I mean, this was 8 years ago, so take this with a pinch of salt. He was tired in the later rounds. I think that's because the first 2 rounds were spent grappling. I think that knackered him a bit. But he's not going to do that this time. And in the more recent fight against Yair, which went, almost 5 rounds, he looked decent.
He was still swinging. He was still swinging in the 5th.
Yeah, I think he was still pushing the pace in the 5th round. Yeah.
Yeah, he was. Maybe the army had an effect on him. He went to the army for 2 years.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. But yeah, that I think they can both go 5 rounds, but I don't see this fight. I don't see this fight going to a decision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me neither.
I am getting on to predictions. I think I'm going to go with. Firstly, I have to say I'm not going to put this fight in the cum. Are you going to put it in the cum? Any of the cum-cums?
Any of the cum-cums?
Any of the cum? All the cum.
How many times can we say cum in one podcast?
I don't know. Fuck knows.
I'm probably going to put Korean Zombie in the risky cum.
Yeah.
Because I do think he wins this.
Or maybe do a separate bet for him to KO him.
Yeah, let's look at the odds.
Yeah, let's look at the odds for that.
Have you seen the odds, Walid?
No, I haven't. I'm assuming the Korean Zombie's probably a slight favorite.
You're right. Yeah, he is a favorite. Let's have a look.
Yeah, I'm just going on how long Ortega's been out for.
I mean, if Brian Ortega can win this fight after that beatdown from Holloway, I'll be very impressed.
Yeah. No, he's a very good fighter. I just think he's been out for too long, and that question about where is he mentally against a guy who's relentless essentially.
So Korean Zombie is a minus 188 favorite.
Okay, all right.
And T City is a plus 150 underdog.
What's the what are the odds for a Korean Zombie KO?
Let's have a look. Plus 125. So not great.
Not great. Yeah, makes sense. What are the odds for an Ortega submission? Just out of interest.
Plus 375. Good
Okay.
odds if you think it's going to happen.
Yeah.
But I don't think it will.
There's always a chance of a submission with Ortega, but yeah, I think it's yeah, I'd put that at 20%. It happening 15-20% probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. So to summarize, I think the Korean Zombie will finish Ortega in the 3rd round via TKO/KO.
Yeah. I think it could happen sooner.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, Korean Zombie hits really fucking hard.
He hits very hard.
Like he's got some really, really quick knockouts. Like
Yeah.
he's got one in like 7 seconds.
Yeah, no, he hits really hard.
Yeah. And he keeps hitting hard, you know, as long as the fight goes on. I'm gonna say round 2. I think he's just gonna break him in round 2.
Okay.
And finish
well,
him.
There you go.
Finish him by strikes, KO, TKO.
There you go. Okay, everyone, thanks for watching. We've both got the Korean Zombie via TKO/KO. In terms of bets, Andrew's thinking Korean Zombie in the risky come. I'm still unsure, but I do think that the Korean Zombie will win this. Yeah, I might actually put him in the risky come as well. I don't see. Yeah, I think it's 70-30 Korean Zombie.
I'd say so, yeah. I'd say 70-30, 75-25.
Yeah. Okay, all right. Well, stay tuned, everyone, for more fight picks. We'll be coming out. They'll be coming out soon. And take care. Thanks for watching.
Bye.